I decided to just give up what I had achieved and come to LA and basically start all over again as a secretary in the secretarial pool at 20th Century Fox, where I learned the business. Because, you know, Suzanne and I were talking about how sometimes you really don't know exactly what you want to do until you're working in the field. There's so many nuances and so many little areas that you would know about in school. And sometimes when you study law, I think you have a little more, a little more of an inkling of what you want to do because you get to take classes in the specific types of law. But in the entertainment business, you know, there are no classes for like developing TV shows or developing feature films. You know, it's kind of just a mishmash of, you know, development. So I started over as a secretary and was fortunate enough to kind of work my way up within the ranks. Ultimately, I became a development executive and then a producer. And I produced several comedy shows for Disney. I produced a show called Dinosaurs and Boy Meets World and Torkelson's. And I can go on and on, you know, all those like really goofy comedies, but I worked on all of those and realized that being an executive was a little bit more interesting to me because I was the kind of person who liked to juggle a lot of different things at the same time. And working as a producer, you really had to focus on the minutia of what each episode was about. And it was a very singular focus, and some people love that. But for me, I'm much happier juggling a lot of different things at the same time. So, as Suzanne explained, you know, I was fortunate enough to become an executive, first at a company called Kushner Lock, small company, which was the best experience because you learn so much when you work at a small company. They let you do everything, from sweep the floors to edit to, you know, literally tell the writer what to do. And that's an experience that, you know, you can only get at a small company. And so I was able to then parlay that experience into a bigger job at Disney, and then a bigger job at 20th Century Fox, and then a bigger job at Lifetime. And when I was in New York, and I can't leave this part out, working for Lifetime, I met my husband, because I really think it's important that everybody who is very career-driven not forget that part of your life. Whatever, you know, whatever gives you joy and whatever's going to make you feel fulfilled on your personal side of your life, you must pursue that at the same time and not forget about that. So I met my husband, and we were married in New York, and shortly after 9/11, our phone rang, and I was offered a position in LA, and I was really sort of traumatized by all that had been happening in New York. And we felt that this was a great opportunity for us to start a new adventure. And so my husband, as he says, followed me to LA, as he said, for 3 years only. Then we were moving back to New York because he's a Wall Street guy and this was not exactly where he wanted to be, but he did it for me. And here we are almost 8 years later, still in LA, very happy. And what we wound up doing was, you know, saying, okay, this is a great opportunity for me. This is sort of my time, a few years here. And we both made a life for ourselves here, which has been great. But originally I moved here to run UPN. And a few years ago, 3.5 years ago, CBS and Warner Brothers decided to fold the WB and UPN and form a new network, which is called the CW. And I was fortunate enough to be a part of that launch. They asked me to be in charge of it, and we had a daunting task to figure out not only what the CW was going to be in terms of the kinds of programming that it would do and the kind of network that it would become. We had to form an entire staff. So we were given the air date of September. And this was in January when we announced the network, and everyone was like, okay, go to the company, figure out the affiliates, figure out the advertisers, figure out who's going to be on your staff. And we had basically 9 months to put this entire network together. And it was probably the greatest challenge that I've ever had. And there were a lot of really wonderful, joyous times, some very hard times, because we had to let so many people go. And that was, of course, the hardest part. And the growing pains were really hard. The assumption was you just put these two networks together, 1 + 1 = 3. You've got all that great programming from the WB, which was very old and have some of these shows from UPN, which were sort of on the up and coming, and you just put them together and this will be great. Well, it was such a fascinating story that actually Harvard Business School did a case study on the formation of the CW, and you can, I'm sure, find it. They interviewed all of us, and they were really there while we were forming the CW. But I can tell you that over the past few years, it has been one of the most satisfying experiences, I think, that I could have ever had. And the reason why is because early on, we were given the freedom to figure out where the white space was, what was not being addressed in network television. And what we found is that there was really no broadcast network speaking to young women, particularly young women 18 to 34. Not that there are any of those in the room here, but, and we formed this network to really speak specifically to that demographic. And you may say, well, why women 18 to 34? It's so narrow, it's so niche. But when you think about it, so much happens to young women during the ages of 18 to 34. You graduate high school, you could probably get your first car, you go on to college, you graduate college, you get your first apartment, you buy all that furniture, you hopefully meet somebody, you wind up living together or getting engaged, you get married, you have children. All of those experiences mean that you're buying new things, which means the advertisers really want to reach that particular demographic. And so for us, it made a lot of business sense. And also, on a creative note, it really allowed us to kind of target a specific audience and help us have a brand in mind when we formulated the network. So I brought some video, I brought some fun stuff to show you. And one of the first tapes I want to show you is something that we played at our upfront. And I don't know if all of you know what an upfront is, but basically there is a crazy schedule that exists within the television industry. And we all go through a process of making, developing scripts, making pilots, and then picking up series. And after those series are picked up, we show all of the new series that are going to be on our new schedule to the advertisers. And each network presents a show, literally like a stage show, for the advertising community to show them what the new schedule will look like. Our show was always done at Madison Square Garden at the theater. And this year, it was scaled back a little bit. We usually have entertainment and all that, but given the economy, we kind of scaled it back. But the tape, the first DVD I'm going to show you is what was our opening piece from this particular show that talks a little bit about what the CW is.